Hello, welcome back to BLENDERSUSHI live noding. So in the previous video, I did like a multiple particle emitter tracing. I want to continue with that a little bit because we had a little bit of glitch, right? I'll show you again what we had last time. So we have basically our emitter and particle being traced. But we are getting something like this. So each particle being traced has this extra edges that we don't want. Sorry. Apparently, you just need to use something like list slice, either list slice or list item. You basically you kind of want to mask one edges and then using the rest of them. So the solution is to plug in the data into list slice, and then here we plug in the frame number. So by doing that, you don't get that extra edges. Make sure the level is correct. Okay, now you're getting like a clean tracing line for each emitter being traced. In this one, I'm actually using pure spread chalk. I don't use animation nodes to move the emitter. And this is how I do it with the emitter. So this guy is doing the tracing, and this is using the script from COS4. This guy gonna load all the particles. This one gets all the emitter and then kind of moving the objects delta location using this vector wiggle kind of solution that I made. This guy here over here is actually making a vector wiggle. I probably should save this to be used on the other file. Gonna export, and this is gonna be tracing and noise, tracing wiggle JSON. So it's saving it as tracing wiggle.json. Okay, now we can continue on. Okay, with the tracings, we can do it in many different ways. Of course, you can have an emitter and with the static particles, but the emitter is kind of moving around. It can leave like some kind of trail, and we can trace that particle trail. The particle is itself is basically static, but you can also have like an emitter that's emitting a single particle, but the particle can go travel around freely, and we can trace that single particle. But we need to kind of a way to attach another particle emitter to that object. Okay, so that's the second one. The next one, actually, if you have like a mesh and you have the mesh have multiple points, vertices, we can parent like a bunch of particle emitter to each point of the mesh, and then we can trace that particle position. So whenever the object is moving and animating, we can trace it. We want to do that in a single like a node tree setup. Let's do the second one first. So we need to emit some particles, and then we want to track that particle. Okay, let's do that. I will be using spread chalk. I think 100% spread chalk. We'll see. It might be kind of easier using animation nodes, but can be slower. But it depends. So let's get started. What's the easiest to do this? Perhaps we just emit something from a grid, or actually just emit from let's try circle with a 6 vertices, and we have this hexagonal. Okay, this guy can emit a bunch of particle, so let's do that. This is a multi-particle trails type 2. First of all, let's emit some particles from this guy. That's the default. It's actually emitting from the face. We want it to emit from the vertices. The vertices by default is doing something like this. It's like it's random, but if it's not random, you will see that it's emitting one by one. This can be useful, like it's emitting one by one, but sometimes you actually want it to emit from the first one, emit from here, and then the second one, third, fourth, fifth, and then continue and going around. Blender particle doesn't seem to do that, but that's okay because we're gonna, with this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points circle, we're gonna emit only 6 particles anyway, and then we're gonna emit all of them at the same time. So like that. If I display the number, it's gonna be clearer. Display the number. So 6 particles being emitted all at the same time. Currently it's being pulled by the gravity. We don't want that, and it's also shooting out from the normal. We don't want that either. Although actually let's keep it. Let it shoot from the normal for now. Just very simple, and then it will disappear. Save this and save next. Okay, this is the master particles. Okay, we're gonna kind of attach 6 emitter into each one of these guys. We need another particle emitter. Gonna merge it into a single particle, and then this is gonna be our tracer. Tracer, this is the master, and it's using, it needs a particle. Let's say make it 250 particles, 1 particle per each frame emitted from the vertices. So it's gonna be doing this, but we don't want the gravity and we don't want the normal. Okay, now with animation nodes, we can create object instancer that can copy an object and then kind of carry the particles system with it. With Spreadshot, I don't think you can do that yet, but so I will make 6 of this guy. 6. Actually, I rather have the name properly named, so I'll kill the original one. I'll keep this one, tracer 001, 002, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we have 6 tracer. Gonna select them. I'm gonna group them, and now we are almost good to go. Okay, I think we are good to go. You can see if I'm moving the playback and then moving this thing around, I can see the trace of particle. That's the idea. Let's go to compositing, Spreadshot, new objects in. Let's pick up the group, that guy, and then get selections. We should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 tracer objects, and we want to put it. We want to use this guy as well. Objects in. grab our circle and let's investigate the particles of this object. Let's go to viewer draw and check it out. Let's check if spray chalk is tracing the particle. Okay, spray chalk is tracing it. You can see the white points there. We can use the position of these particles to control the 6 tracer objects. Set object ID set. Okay. Object delta location, the value will be this guy. Okay, that seems to work. Except that we are really like this guy by default is moving the delta locations. That means the original emitter needs to be at the 0, 0, 0. So Alt G and then should be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this guy, one of them is not giving the trail, which is pretty interesting. Zero it out. Check it out. Okay, it's good. Let's clean up something first. 3D view props and then get rid of, let's hide the grid and hide the XY. Okay, now we have our thing ready. Now, in order to see the, oh, by the way, this guy, the circle emitter, should have the particles live for forever. Okay, now they're good. The next thing we do is just trace the particles. I think let's test that real quick. We're gonna be using the script from COS4 SN get all particles. Okay, we don't need this guy. Script node, grab the script and create the nodes, reload, should get the particles. Let's check it out. This guy grabs all the particles. We have 7. We have to get rid one of them actually. List item. We don't want the original master. We want to keep the rest of them. Yeah, we don't want this guy. We want the rest of them. So that's yep, that's correct. Now we want to UV connection and kind of trace the particles. Edges, slices off. I think we are good. So now I'll just make like force field, or in the original circle emitter itself I can do like a Brownian and we'll see how it goes. Brownian should give some kind of motion to the particle. There you go. You can see, you notice there's the extra vertices thing, so we need to clean that up with the edges here. List, slice, and level 1, and then just plug in the frame info into the top. Okay, I think we are good. I think it's that extra point there that's causing the edges. We actually can get rid of that point as well. Alright, I think that's much cleaner. And we have our trail. At a glance, it looks like a bit like jellyfish. I always want to make like a procedural jellyfish. It's a classic problem actually. It's been done in a software package like Houdini, maybe Maya. Jellyfish is pretty interesting. So you have this kind of like a cloth, and then each one of them has a kind of like a particle trail, and this guy is moving in a procedural way. I need to study the motion of the head here, and I don't know. Everything about jellyfish is pretty alien, and it's perfect for procedural workflow. Okay, so we have trail. This is just Brownian. If I turn off the Brownian, we don't get that motion anymore. File, save as. I think this is yeah, pretty good. Of course, we have a few things here, like this guy. It's the original emitter. Okay, the master emitter. I should name it master. And this guy is all the tracer. Tracer object spin. And this is actually connecting all the edges, and we are good. I could make like I could make more particles here, but it's also the tracer needs to change. Normally I use animation nodes, but I'm using SquareChalk fully here. It's just like a choice because both of them can work. Now if I use force field like turbulence or vortex, maybe vortex can be nice. Turbulence first. You see the turbulence is moving the particles, but all of them, including the... Now this is interesting actually, that you can see it's affecting the original emitter, and also it's affecting our trail, particle trails, and we get something like that. We might want to kind of make the force to affect only one of the particles, but I won't do that. I think it's hiding in the particle system option here, the vertex group, so you can force field setting, field weight. I think it's field weight. You can turn off some effects. Let's try it on one of them. One of the trail. So tracer number 2, I will just turn off the turbulence. So what's gonna happen there? Well, surprisingly, all these tracers are using the same particles system. Yeah, that's also the another complexity layer. Like you need to understand. Whenever I'm making a change on one of them, it will affect all of the particles because they're pretty much like using the same particle system. So that's really important. Unless you make this a single user copy, like it's gonna be unique for each one of the particle system. That's more preferable. But anyhow, turning off the turbulence on one of them actually affecting those particles. No, so now it's only affecting the master particles, and that's being traced. So if I increase the turbulence now, like 20, we can start to see the effects of turbulence. I really like this way of working. If you have like only a few particles and then you want to see how the particles kind of traveling, this is really fast and interactive. You can change like what happens if you increase the flow and then reduce the strength. Check it out. So the flow, I think the flow kind of making the particle just moving around its own position. I think the noise is actually more interesting. It's doing this let me reduce the strength. The noise can be really high, I believe. 10. I think the noise and the flow, they are all working together, and the size of the turbulence. I think that's actually scaling it. Don't know. It's there are all kind of possibilities here. We can actually use less of the particle tracer, like 250 instead of 250. We can have it like 125. So, oh, interesting thing is we have that extra thing coming up. Interesting. I guess we can leave it like that, but maybe we have like a vortex. Now it's doing the vortex to all of the particles. We probably don't want that either. Back to our tracer and then turn off the effect of vortex on this guy. So now it's just gonna be the master being affected by the vortex. I think by default the vortex is actually going up. It's gonna do it for 250 frames. Yeah, but I think that's a pretty good start, basic setup to do this. Maybe in the next few episodes of live noding I can investigate the force field better. Like smoke flow is very interesting. You can use smoke to affect the particles motions. Drag, turbulence, void as a force, curve guide, maybe Leonard, I never used this. Texture is especially interesting. There's a lot of force field that you can use to control the particle motions. Sometimes I do like the force, sometimes I don't really like it because I rather use the motion of that you make yourself, like a procedurally. Like in this case, we've been using the particles to control it. You can actually just use so this is like using the particle system to drive the tracer objects. If I actually unplug everything, let me think. Let me think of something. If I turn off the simulations, I turn off the physics simulations, okay, so the particle will be static. If I do that and then I use the vector math here, and using like a random number, random vector, Whoops. Okay. Cool. Spiritual just Blender just crashes again with Spiritual. It's okay. It's I save it often, so no problem. So back to this guy. Vector math. Add random vector. 6 of them. Plug that in and plug this guy in and plug this guy into the value. And with the circle, what's gonna happen now? I'm gonna play back and then gonna play with the seed. You can see what's happening. It's a random position. Okay, it's a random positions affecting the particle emitter. That's why we have a trace that looks like this. You can of course also use, instead of random, you can use a vector noise. Vector noise. And plug this guy in, and then this can be the frame number. Actually, this guy can be random noise. 6 of them. And we can use vector math and vector in. Yep, something like that should actually work. Oh, we end up with a randomness. Maybe the math can control. This is actually like a vector wiggle. There should be a vector wiggle node in Spectra, or I just need to make it myself. I think the tracer objects have 6 objects plugged in there. Maybe I can plug in the vertices. And no, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, it's doing the wiggle kind of motion. It's a vector noise doing it. It's pushing the emitter objects, and then the emitter objects being traced. So you end up with something like this. Ideally, you want to be able to increase the number of particles, and then everything will propagate. For now, I think using animation nodes object instancer is the best to do that. Yeah, I can't think of anything else at the moment. But yeah, remember that's a 6 emitter, where each emitter actually being parented to the 6 points of the circle. So that's why this is what's going on at the moment, and the motion is coming from Sverchok doing the noise wiggle kind of thing. If you want, you can of course back to the original particle being emitted and then turn on the Newtonian, and I believe it's gonna be I think that guy is now using particle simulations, and let me try if I turn on the gravity. Yeah, you see, it's moving down while doing the wiggle. This is actually interesting. It's kind of like the force, the procedural motions and particle motions kind of working together. I guess this is an interesting introduction, like an accidental setup where you use your own procedural force and particles. It's gonna be more complex if I imagine like Blender 3.0, if they have like like a particle system that's using more like a nodes for node space, this is what you're gonna get, more or less, because let me reduce this. So that's a wiggle, and then force, motion force affecting the particles. Yeah, that's interesting looking. I never see Blender do this. Well, anyway, that's pretty much for today live noding. I'll guess if you have any questions, feedbacks, you can leave it down below. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you again for tuning in.